Well, today we are going to work through in-class exercise number 3, which is cash flow. And as a reminder, homework number 2 is due at the beginning of class on Sunday. And so it's due at 8 o'clock on the desk there. And by the way, if you came in late and you didn't get the class notes or the in-class exercise, you can grab that once we start on the in-class exercise. We'll start on it in just a minute. And so I've already had a few questions on the homework. You know, feel free and stop by my office. I have office hours from 10 until noon because I teach another section of this class at 9 to 10, and then I have environmental engineering from noon to 1. So if you have questions and you can't come during my office hours, you can try and see if I'm in my office, or you can send me an email and we can make an appointment and I'll definitely be there. Hopefully most of the homework should be pretty easy since we've already done the in-class exercises to prepare you for it. Any questions on the announcements before we move on? All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about theory and then we'll work on the exercise. And we're talking about money moving in and out. And so sometimes what you need to do is you think about a box. And if you have something moving into the box and out, and what it is money. If you spend more, if you have more money going out than you have money coming in, then your pool of savings will go down. We'll call this savings. And so basically, I teach the same formula in environmental engineering, if you're taking that class as well. Accumulation, or savings, is the flow of money in minus the flow of money out. It's the difference between the two. So if you have more money coming in, your savings will grow. So that makes it very important for us to classify cash inflows and cash outflows so that we can keep track of how the balance is changing over time. So inflows can be a lot of different things. Some of them are obvious. If you are selling a product or selling a service, when you get paid for that, that's a revenue. Another word for revenue is receipt, income. Those are all synonyms. Here's one that's a little bit less obvious, though. I've italicized it because you need to know this one for the homework. Savings generated by projects and activities that flow in. So savings generated. Let's say that in the past you used to spend a lot of money on electricity because maybe you had a very inefficient air conditioner. But someone has the idea, let's change from the inefficient air conditioner to an air conditioner that uses less electricity. So if you use less electricity, you're saving money that you used to spend. That counts as an inflow. So why does it count as an inflow? Because it's the opposite of an outflow. It used to be an outflow. It used to be an expense. But now you've saved some of that previous expense. And so in your homework it says that an insurance company is saving money that it used to spend. That counts as an inflow. All right? Any questions about that aspect? Outflows are expenses, disbursements, taxes, anything that makes your savings account gets smaller anytime you're spending money. Now the net cash flow, abbreviated NCF, is the difference between the two. The input minus the output. Over time, your accumulation is going to be affected by the net cash flow. So we can say NCF is the difference between in and out. So that is going to affect whether your balance is growing or declining. It's the revenues minus the disbursements. One other thing I'll remind you about when we do drawings, about cash flows, because that's really the point of today is going to be these little drawings that we'll put together. When you do a drawing, the common assumption is that income and expenses come at the end of the period. If you have a job, they don't pay you before you worked, they pay you after you worked. So maybe your employer pays you at the end of every month. They pay you on the 31st of August, not on the 1st of August. And also, if you have an expense, let's say, for example, if you have an electricity bill. You use electricity during the month of August, and at the end of August, you pay for what you used. That's, the post-paid idea. So the common assumption, unless it tells you differently, assume that inflows and outflows occur at the end of the period, whether the period is a month or a year. The typical thing is that it happens at the end. When you have a cash flow, whether it is in or out, there's two different kinds of cash flows. It can be a point estimate, which means you have an exact amount in mind, a specific amount, and it's a single value. Is there an eraser that I'm not seeing? There it is. All right. So we're going to do drawings today, and I've gave you a preview of this in a previous class lecture when we did something like this. We said down is a payment, up is you're getting money. So if you have it like this, then that means you know the exact amount. It's a certain line. And that's a point estimate. For example, an income of $150,000 per month. That would be a pretty good income. A range estimate would maybe be, if you didn't know exactly what it was going to be, you'd put a bar around it, and you could maybe shade in that bar. And so you're saying your income is going to be between, in this example it says, 2.5 million and 3.5 million. And so the income could be somewhere in this range. And if you've taken a statistics class before, you know a little bit about the normal distribution. Do you remember seeing a figure that looks like this? It's called a bell curve sometimes. And so maybe the most likely thing is probably you'll have 3 million, but there's a small chance you'll get 3.5 million, maybe a small chance you'll get 2.5 million. And so these range estimates may also have a probability attached to them. It's a range and then also a probability distribution. A distribution just means spread out. And so this normal distribution is saying most of the probability is at the center, and there's a small probability at any of the tails or at the end. So 3.5 million is the large tail, the high amount. 2.5 million would be the small amount. There's only a small chance of either of those extremes. Yes? Well, we were taught, oh, you're right, cash outflow. Exactly. Thank you for noticing that. Yep, because we do plus means cash in, and minus means cash out. You're right. That is an outflow. I hadn't looked at it very carefully. This first one was an income, but this one was an outflow. Very good. Other questions? So when you diagram something, this is a really basic slide. The point of this first image is to say you draw a horizontal line and you put tick marks on it. And each of the tick marks represents whatever your time period is. It maybe is months, maybe it is years, but you do as many tick marks as there's going to be periods in your description. So if it's a problem for 5 years of monthly payments, you would make 60 tick marks. If it is for how many years until you retire, if right now you're 20 years old and you think in your mind you're going to retire when you're 85 years old, so you're working for 65 years, something like that, and you put 65 more tick marks, and you could diagram your cash flow. The next thing, it says after you draw the line and put on the ticks, then you start to show the cash flow, where down, as has already been pointed out, down means that you're paying money, and up means that you're receiving money. So inflow is on top, outflow is on the bottom. Yeah? This just means that in year one, nothing happened for this example. So the interpretation of this is that in year 0, this person had to pay $80. In year 2, they received money. We don't know how much. And then this n minus 1 just means however many total. If 60 is the total, then this is the one before the last one. But some problems you'll have something happening every year, and some problems there won't be any cash flow in a certain year. Good question. Are there other questions? All right. So let's bring up the lights and work on this in-class exercise number 3. Remember, I collect these at the end of class. This is how I'm taking attendance for today's lecture. So please be sure to write your name and your ID number. And what I'd like you to do is, it's okay to work in pairs, or if you prefer to work individually, that's all right too, but feel free to collaborate. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 problems. And so this should take us a little bit of time. I'm going to circulate around as we work on this just to see what you got.